I was originally a palace maid doing menial chores like sweeping and cleaning, but I caught the eye of Prince Rui when he was drunk. He insisted on taking me back to his mansion. Lady Rui, feeling humiliated, went straight to the Empress Dowager in the palace and demanded a bowl of tangerine soup to force me to drink. The potion was so potent that it not only brought on my menstruation prematurely but also caused severe uterine bleeding, nearly costing me my life. By the time I was slightly recovered, Prince Rui had already taken a new lover and completely forgotten about me. Recently, however, some unscrupulous scoundrel had suggested to Prince Rui that he send a barren concubine to the crown prince to humiliate him. Compared to the lecherous Prince Rui, who had fathered nearly 10 illegitimate children, the crown prince had not a single heir to his name, putting his position as heir apparent in jeopardy. In recent years, the crown prince's brothers had begun to stir up trouble, and Prince Rui was one of them, but he was rather incompetent, and his advisors were morally bankrupt. Actually coming up with such a scheme as sending a concubine to the crown prince, whether the crown prince took her to his bed or not, they could use the excuse that the crown prince is impotent to depose him. When the news reached the back courtyard of Prince Rui's mansion, everyone except Lady Rui was thrown into panic. Fearing they would be chosen, for going to the Eastern Palace was basically a death sentence. In the end, I was the one selected. The moment Prince Rui laid eyes on me, he froze. How could my mansion have such a stunning beauty? And I never knew it. As he spoke, he flew into a rage, slamming his fist on the table. It must have been the princess who hid her away. Pick someone else. How can such a beautiful woman be given away to the crown prince for nothing? Your Highness, please calm your anger, his advisor said. This Mistress Yun is the most suitable candidate. First, her outstanding looks will make outsiders think Your Highness is truly thinking of the crown prince, thus misleading him. Second, she is just a former palace maid with no family background, unable to provide any support to the crown prince. Most importantly, after being forced to drink the tangerine soup, she can no longer bear children. I bit my lip so hard that it nearly bled. Feeling as if I had been stripped naked and thrown onto the street, burning with shame and anger, but I kept telling myself, endure it, and soon I will be able to escape this hellhole of Prince Rui's mansion. Between beauty and his great cause, Prince Rui still chose the latter. But on the way to the Eastern Palace with me, he couldn't bear to part with me, groping and touching me, holding my hand and caressing it, whispering sweet nothings to me as if I were an innocent young girl. I hung my head, feigning shyness, but in truth, I was only hiding my disgust for him. Men's words are nothing but lies. If Prince Rui hadn't taken advantage of his drunkenness to force me back to his mansion and humiliate Lady Rui, how could I have endured so much suffering in his residence? Lady Rui was narrow-minded. Even though I had long been forgotten by Prince Rui, she still hated me deeply. In the mansion, she didn't need to lift a finger herself. She simply had my monthly allowance and rations cut short. This time, Prince Rui planned to send someone to humiliate the crown prince shortly after the crown princess's mourning period. Lady Rui was overjoyed, but there were too many thorns in her side. After much selection, I was the only one who fit the criteria, a former maid with no family, no children, and rendered barren by the sterilizing soup. As far as I was concerned, where could I be worse off than here? Prince Rui kept rambling on about the crown prince's shortcomings. My men have found out the crown prince is all show and no substance. Every day he puts on a show of being diligent in state affairs, using the crown princess's mourning as an excuse not to touch any women. It's all just to cover up his impotence. The more Prince Rui spoke, the more convinced he became. Then he said magnanimously, "Don't worry, Mistress Yun. Stay in the Eastern Palace for a while. When I achieve my great ambition, I will definitely take you back to the mansion." Looking at Prince Rui's smug expression, as if he actually stood a chance of becoming emperor, I twitched the corner of my mouth. Let him be happy. Upon arriving at the Eastern Palace, he dragged me in front of the crown prince and sang his own praises. I stood to the side, listening with such discomfort that I wanted to squirm. I'm grateful to my fifth brother for taking the trouble over the nunnery matter and personally delivering such a beauty to me, the crown prince said in an unhurried tone, his emotions unreadable. I'm glad Your Highness likes her. Prince Rui replied, for the position of heir apparent, besides virtue and talent, the ability to father sons is also crucial. The crown prince coughed lightly. Fifth brother speaks the truth, to live up to my brother's kind intentions. Shall this beauty you sent attend to me tonight? There's no need to be in such a hurry, Prince Rui blurted out suddenly, earning himself a few extra glances from the crown prince. What I mean is, I'm deeply flattered that your highness values the concubine I sent so highly. Listening to their exchange of words, I became even more certain of the secret evaluation I had once made of Prince Rui, useless fool. As soon as Prince Rui left, I immediately knelt before the crown prince. Declaring that I would never do anything foolish or underhanded, I ask for nothing else, your highness, I said, but a place to shelter me. Stand up, the crown prince said. You are nothing more than a pawn in their game. I did not get up immediately, but kowtowed 3 times to the crown prince. His words made it clear that he would not be angered by Prince Rui's blatant humiliation. You shall reside in Yunliu courtyard, the crown prince added, since the crown princess passed away. Everything in the Eastern Palace is now under the charge of Nanny Liu. You may go to her if you need anything. Yes, thank you, your highness. I withdrew, and a young eunuch immediately came to lead me the way. When I arrived at Yunliu courtyard, I realized that although it was far from the crown prince's sleeping quarters, it was located near his study. I had left Prince Rui's mansion with nothing. All the silver I had saved during my days as a palace maid had been spent there. I sat on the soft couch and finally sighed. After all the twists and turns, I was back in the palace again, and an odd sense of familiarity welled up in my heart. After composing myself, Nanny Liu arrived. Miss Yun, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince has summoned you to attend him tonight. This old slave is here to teach you the rules of serving His Highness, since His Highness has not yet conferred a title upon you. This old slave can only assign a maid to attend to your needs for now. I nodded and thanked Nanny Liu. Unfortunately, I had nothing to offer her as a gift, so I could only pull out the only silver hairpin in my hair and hand it to her. Nanny Liu declined the gift and got straight to the point. According to palace rules, for your first night of service, you must go to the Crown Prince's sleeping quarters, but His Highness has sent word that your courtyard is close to his study, and he is too lazy to go back. He will come directly here tonight. After dinner, the Crown Prince had not yet arrived, but someone from Prince Rui's mansion showed up instead. The young maid assigned to me by Nanny Liu hurried in to report. I nodded at her. Let them come in. The visitor was a nanny from Lady Rui's side. She had always held her head high and looked down on others in the past, and she was no different now. This old slave is here by order of Lady Rui to deliver your luggage. Mistress Yun, she said. Her ladyship also said that the palace is not like the prince's mansion. If Mistress Yun loses her means of making a living, I'm afraid you won't even be able to earn enough to feed and clothe yourself. I smiled. In the past, in the prince's mansion, my monthly allowance and rations had always been cut short, forcing me to do embroidery work and ask someone to sell it outside for money. Lady Rui had certainly known about it, and had laughed at me repeatedly. Now that I had been sent to the Eastern Palace as a tool to humiliate someone by the very Prince Rui who had taken me back to his mansion, I could well imagine how delighted she was. A faint smile tugged at my lips, and I suddenly felt the urge to provoke Lady Rui, thank Lady Rui for her concern. Although the Eastern Palace is not as lavishly decorated as Prince Rui's mansion, it can still afford to support a single woman. I naturally have no need to worry about my basic needs. The grand garden of Prince Rui's mansion costs an astronomical amount of money to maintain every day. I'm sure it won't miss such a small sum of money. The nanny's face turned ugly. Mistress Yun, you really think highly of yourself, don't you? I still replied with a smile. Naturally, otherwise, how could I have been chosen to come and serve the Crown Prince? I'm afraid my days will only get better from now on. The old nanny let out a snort of disdain. You, a woman who has drunk the sterilizing soup. Before she could finish her sentence, I took 3 quick steps forward and slapped her wrinkled face hard. You speak nonsense. This slap is given to you for Lady Rui's sake. The old nanny was used to throwing her weight around by Lady Rui's side, and she even tried to slap me back in return, but the Crown Prince's voice suddenly rang out. drag this insolent slave away." The old nanny froze with her hand halfway raised, then fell to her knees. "Please spare me, Your Highness." The Crown Prince strode into the room. His gentle face was now clouded with anger. "The Prince and Princess Rui are truly of one mind. One after another, they not only like meddling in the affairs of my backyard but also dare to dictate how I run it." The eunuchs who had followed him into the room immediately dragged the begging old nanny away. "Please calm your anger, Your Highness," I said, about to kneel down. But the Crown Prince reached out and helped me up. "Go bathe." I froze for a moment, thinking that the Crown Prince would take this opportunity to make a fuss and get rid of me. This trouble. I quickly nodded and allowed the servants to help me bathe and dry my hair. When they were about to apply incense to me, I refused. I really couldn't stand those strong, cloying scents. After I was done, the Crown Prince was already leaning on the bed, lying on his side, reading a miscellaneous book in his hand. "I'm sorry to have kept Your Highness waiting," I said. The Crown Prince put down the book and looked at me with his deep, starry eyes, which were filled with indescribable tenderness. His skin was even fairer than mine, and his temperament was gentle and refined, like a carefully carved piece of jade. At that moment, he waved me over, and I immediately moved to his side, my heart beating rapidly. The Crown Prince reached out and pulled me into his arms in one swift motion. His fingertips wandered over my skin quickly, leaving a trail of burning heat wherever they touched. The first place his large hand lingered was on my chest. He even weighed it with interest, a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. My fifth brother wasn't exaggerating. "You really do have a magnificent figure." At that moment, my mind went blank with a loud boom. And I was so ashamed that I wished I could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. "Let me see if the rest of you is as genuine as he claims," he said, his hand slowly moving downward. It was a common consensus among most people that the Crown Prince was kind and benevolent, but I never expected him to be so bold and unrestrained in private. "My fifth brother really is an honest man." I heard the Crown Prince chuckle above my head, and my cheeks grew hotter and hotter. That was right. After entering Prince Rui's mansion, I had never been favored by him. The mansion was full of beautiful women, not to mention the new concubines he took in. He was already stretched thin taking care of the women who had borne him children. How could he possibly remember a woman he had brought back from the palace while drunk? "Then I'll gladly accept this gift," the Crown Prince said softly, but his actions were completely opposite, rough and urgent, clearly showing that he had abstained from women for a long time. By the time I was so exhausted that I cried out. My eyelids felt so heavy I didn't have the strength to lift them. But the Crown Prince had already gotten up, and it would be highly inappropriate for me to stay lying down. I gritted my teeth and tried to force myself up, only to find I couldn't move at all. In the end, the Crown Prince lifted me up in his arms and carried me to the side room to bathe together. Once I was lowered into the tub, the scalding hot water washed over my body, and I finally felt like I was coming back to life. Leaning against the edge of the tub, I closed my eyes in comfort and let out a soft sigh of relief. But my moment of peace didn't last long. The Crown Prince squeezed into the tub right after me, turning the spacious tub into a cramped space in an instant. His hands rested casually on the edge of the tub, but his body leaned forward, forming an enclosure around me. The rising steam and the overwhelming pressure of his presence made me dare not even breathe too loudly, let alone look up at him. But the Crown Prince clearly had no intention of letting me keep my head down. He lifted my chin with his fingertips, forcing me to meet his gaze. In the next moment, I felt as if a tidal wave of passion had swept over me in the tub. The steam grew thicker, the air hotter and hotter, suffocating me almost to the point of dizziness. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being treated like a helpless prey, my body tensing up in alert, unable to relax for even a second. And the Crown Prince was so dominant, leaving me with absolutely no way to resist. By the time it was over, I was so drained I couldn't even lift a single finger. A well-satisfied man really is a different breed. After carrying me back to bed from the tub, he even fetched some ointment and started applying it all over my body. "Your Highness, I can endure the soreness elsewhere. You are far too noble to trouble yourself with applying ointment to every inch of me." I honestly mustered up the last bit of my strength to burrow under the covers. curling up like a silkworm cocoon, trying to hide from him. But the crown prince pressed one hand firmly against my back and even used his legs to pin me down, continuing to spread the ointment meticulously. Even though I had left the hot water behind, my soul still felt like it was boiling in it, scalding hot, through and through. Since I was powerless to resist, I surrendered to my exhaustion, breathing in the faint, bitter herbal scent of the ointment, laced with a hint of refreshing mint, and drifted off into a deep sleep. Whether it was due to sheer tiredness or the familiarity of that medicinal fragrance, my mind wandered back to the distant past in my dreams. Come to think of it, the late crown princess and I were actually half-sisters, sharing the same father. My mother had never been willing to be his concubine. Even after giving birth to me, she had never given up on the idea of escaping. But the small courtyard where we lived was always under strict guard. It wasn't until I turned 5 that a richly dressed noble lady burst into our courtyard, in front of his legal wife. My father kept insisting that my mother had seduced him, and that he had only kept us around for the sake of the child. My mother was sold off to who knows where. She had finally escaped the courtyard that had trapped her for so long, and when she left, she didn't even glance back at me. As for me, I was sent to another walled compound, handed over to an old woman with a hunched back and a white veil covering her face. In that courtyard, I had only one identity, a medicinal vessel, every single day. I was submerged in a tub of potent medicinal concoctions, my skin cracking open inch by inch until my entire body was covered in gaping wounds. The pain was so excruciating it felt like my heart was being torn out of my chest, my screams so shrill they sounded like the wails of a vengeful ghost. Year after year, I was turned into a scarred, terrifying monster, all to transform my body into a vessel capable of bearing heirs for the crown prince, who had been afflicted with a deadly cold poison since birth. Because my half-sister was destined to be the crown princess, she needed heirs, but as a lady of noble birth, how could she possibly endure such agony? Then one day, a cooling balm was spread over my burning wounds, bringing me a faint, long-lost sense of comfort. "It's useless," I said, my voice weak but calm, not even bothering to open my eyes. I had no desire to know who was pitying me. New wounds will appear tomorrow anyway. But the hands applying the ointment to my body didn't stop. They stubbornly covered every visible wound. The faint scent of medicine lingered in the air, bitter herbs mixed with a sharp, refreshing hint of mint. When I woke up again, the sun was already high in the sky. I tried to get up, but my hands and feet felt so limp I couldn't summon any strength, flailing around like a fish out of water for a moment before resigning myself to the fact that I was completely immobile. "Concubine Yun. You're awake, concubine." I blinked in surprise. Given my humble background, being made a mere bed servant or even left without any title at all would have been perfectly normal. The crown prince really had been generous to bestow upon me the title of concubine. "Why didn't you wake me earlier?" How improper for a concubine to still be lying in bed after the crown prince has risen. Before he left, His Highness ordered this servant not to disturb your rest, your ladyship. Xinga was still quite young and extremely obedient, so she really hadn't woken me up at all. I see. Just then, I heard a commotion coming from outside, the sound of many people coming and going. "What's going on out there?" "It's Eunuch Fu from His Highness's side, your ladyship. He said that the Crown Prince's sleeping quarters are too far from his study, so he intends to rest directly at Yunliu Courtyard this afternoon. That's why they've brought people over to set up a temporary study here, along with some of His Highness's daily clothes." I froze for a moment. Was the Crown Prince planning to take up permanent residence in Yunliu Courtyard? Even if this was all just a show for the outside world, did he really have to go to such lengths? "You go ask Nanny Liu to bring the head maid assigned to me over to see me. As for the rest, let His Highness's people go about their business." "Yes, your ladyship." The servants responsible for cleaning the courtyard were shared among the residents. According to palace regulations, a head maid would also be assigned to me, essentially a steward to help manage all the affairs of the courtyard. While Xinga was out fetching Nanny Liu, I sat on the bed, collecting my scattered thoughts and composing my emotions. "Your ladyship, she's here," Xinga called out as she entered the room. I looked up, and at the sight of the person standing behind her, My body gave a slight tremor, though it was gone in the blink of an eye. This servant's name is Inshua. I pay my respects to your ladyship. Very well, from now on, you shall take charge of all matters in Yunlu courtyard. Yes, your ladyship. Inshua bowed her head, looking extremely respectful and obedient. Shinga, you may step down, I have some private matters to discuss. As soon as Shinga had left, Inshua lifted her head, a smile playing on her lips. But her eyes were already brimming with tears. Yuna, she grabbed my hands in hers, looking me up and down anxiously. It's so good to see you're still alive. You've gotten so thin. I smiled faintly. Inshua, how did you end up in the Eastern Palace? Word spread throughout the palace yesterday that Prince Rui was sending someone to the Eastern Palace. As soon as I found out that someone was you, I pulled every string I could to get transferred here. Those palace maids were even thanking me profusely for taking the position. I sighed softly. You really shouldn't have come. You know what my true identity is. This place is no what? She cut me off sharply. If you hadn't volunteered to deliver that message in my place back then, you never would have been pestered by Prince Rui. It would have been me who was forced to drink the sterilizing soup and suffer in Prince Rui's mansion. How could I ever turn my back on such a great debt of gratitude? Yuna, you've finally endured all the hardships and are now reaping the rewards. Reaping the rewards? I twitched the corner of my mouth. It certainly seems that way, doesn't it? The Crown Prince was going to have lunch at Yunlu courtyard. As the mealtime drew near, I went to wait for him at the gate early. Your concubine greets your highness. The Crown Prince stepped forward and pulled me up. Brushing a strand of stray hair off my forehead, the sun is far too scorching. Don't wait out here like this again in the future. Yes, your highness, having the opportunity to dine with the Crown Prince was definitely a privilege for me. I could feast on all these delicious foods to my heart's content while attending to him at the same time. My attentive service made the Crown Prince glance at me repeatedly, and I lowered my head in embarrassment. Does your highness dislike my attentions? The Crown Prince averted his gaze, savoring the fish I had picked for him with obvious enjoyment, and didn't say a word. After the meal, the Crown Prince sat down to read a book. I picked up a soft measuring tape, hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and spoke up. Your highness has been so kind to me, and I wish to repay your generosity, but I am foolish and know no other skills. I would like to make a few sets of casual clothes for your highness, something comfortable for you to wear daily. A faint smile tugged at the corner of the Crown Prince's lips. His expression was extremely relaxed, even brimming with quiet amusement. He put down his book and walked over to me, spreading his arms wide. Go ahead and measure me then. At first, it was just a normal measuring session, but it didn't stay that way for long. I was concentrating hard on measuring the circumference of his waist when a sudden force tugged at my own waist, pulling me forward until I stumbled into his embrace. Does it still hurt? A low voice rumbled in my ear. Thick with suppressed desire and restraint, I buried my face in his chest, my voice muffled and soft. The ointment your highness applied last night worked wonders. A soft chuckle sounded above my head, and then I was lifted up in his arms. Then accompany me to digest our meal properly. Outside, the sun blazed fiercely in the sky, the heat sweltering. The temperature inside the room was just as intense. His calloused hands traced over the firm, well-muscled planes of his body, sliding slowly downward until they brushed against a long, jagged scar on his lower back, stretching almost halfway across his waist, its texture rough and terrifying. That scar, a fragment of memory, flickered in my mind. But before I could make sense of it, my hand was caught and pinned above my head. What followed was a frenzy of passion, fierce and overwhelming, leaving me dazed and intoxicated, unable to think of anything else. We are weak right now, so we are at the mercy of others, but we will not remain weak forever. We will grow stronger. We will seize every opportunity to climb higher, when we have climbed high enough. Those people will never again be able to control our fates or trample us underfoot like ants. The young man had always worn a mask, but his eyes were filled with boundless resentment and burning ambition. A long, gruesome scar, almost piercing his entire waist, marred his lower back. The Crown Prince's health has fully recovered now. Do you know what this means? Year after year passed, and the old woman's back grew more and more hunched. she stood before me. Her eyes also filled with resentment and regret. Tell me, all my hard work over these past 10 years, what a bitter pill to swallow, but the imperial palace was never short of bitter regrets, and human lives were the cheapest things of all. Next life, remember to choose better parents. She grabbed my chin, forcing my mouth open, and tried to shove the poison in her hand down my throat. She was unwilling to accept her failure, but did I deserve to die like this? The people who had turned me into a monster still lived lives of luxury and privilege, while I was going to die like a worthless insect. Why, in the midst of our struggle, I pulled the hairpin from her head with all my strength and drove it straight into her throat with lightning speed. Even to this day, I can still faintly feel the scalding heat of the blood that sprayed across my face. She clutched her bleeding neck, gasping for breath, trying desperately to squeeze out words. But no sound came out. You once praised me for my extraordinary patience and tenacity. Through the endless days of torment, every sensation in my body had faded away, only to slowly return as I adapted. When that remote courtyard was engulfed in roaring flames, I thought I had finally gained my freedom. But when I pushed open the gate, I realized that all these years, I had never left the palace at all. The small courtyard was just a smaller hell inside a much larger one. The cold palace had burned down, and I had slipped into the group of maids being transferred elsewhere, ending up in the cleaning department. After that day, I never saw that young man again. The young man had said that from the moment he was born, he was destined to be nothing but a shadow to others, living without even a name of his own. So the crown prince had never truly recovered from his illness. He had merely activated a backup plan. A sudden sharp pain pricked my fingertip, pricked by an embroidery needle, jerking me back from my memories. Fearing that a drop of blood would stain the half-finished pattern on the silk, I quickly popped my finger into my mouth, and then a name suddenly surfaced in my mind, Aang. It was my turn to start climbing upward too. Concubine Yoon, someone from the Empress's palace has arrived. Her Majesty wishes to see you. I turned my head to see the unmistakable anxiety on Inshua's face. Of course she was worried. The scandal of Prince Rui sending a concubine to the crown prince had caused an uproar throughout the palace. For the Empress to summon me at such a time could only mean trouble was brewing. I smiled faintly. There's no helping it. I cannot refuse a summons from the Empress. When soldiers come, we block them. When water comes, we dam it up. This path was never meant to be smooth sailing anyway. After fixing my hair and changing into more formal attire, I made my way to the Empress's palace at once. Concubine Yoon, please wait outside. The summer heat had grown increasingly oppressive, and the old nanny's face was stern as she left me standing there and never returned. Without the Empress's order to enter, I had no choice but to stand there, enduring the scorching sun beating down on my head. The heat made me dizzy, my body swaying unsteadily on my feet. Just as I was about to collapse from exhaustion, I was finally told I could go in. Upon entering the hall, I discovered that Lady Rui was also kneeling on the floor. Your humble servant greets your Majesty, Empress Dowager. But the Empress said nothing, clearly intending to humiliate me by making me wait on my knees. It didn't matter, I had always possessed an ironclad endurance. Lady Rui, the Empress finally spoke up, her voice cold. When Prince Rui first begged me to give him a palace maid to take back to his mansion, I agreed even though I disapproved. When you felt humiliated and begged me to grant you the sterilizing soup, I did not refuse you either. And now you and your husband have the audacity to send a lowly maid who has drunk the sterilizing soup to the crown prince, with Prince Rui even going around spreading rumors that the crown prince is impotent. Have I been far too lenient with you both? The Empress's words were loaded with innuendo, all but saying that they had sent a barren flower to her son, yet her son had actually been foolish enough to tend to it diligently every day, bringing nothing but shame upon her. I did try to dissuade His Royal Highness, but he is so stubborn. Lady Rui rambled on, shifting all the blame onto Prince Rui while bemoaning her own helplessness and grievances. I did not summon you here to listen to your complaints. The Empress cut her off sharply. If Prince Rui can send her here, then I as Empress have the authority to order you to take her back again. I am not yet so destitute that I cannot afford to support a single woman and must send her away. The crown prince strode into the hall without warning, reaching out to lift me up from my knees where I had been kneeling for so long. Mother Empress, where exactly do you intend to send your son's concubine? Concubine? She is nothing but a lowly servant girl. The Empress's voice trembled with anger. When my fifth son sent her here, I told him plainly that she was a woman who had drunk the sterilizing soup, but he insisted that he was doing it for the sake of the crown prince's heirs, sending her here specially, and now, it would be utterly absurd to send her back after accepting her. Is mother trying to sow discord between your son and his fifth brother? Discord? The crown prince interrupted the Empress again, his tone calm yet unshakably firm. Ever since childhood, your son has longed more than anything for brotherly affection. That my fifth brother cares so deeply for our fraternal bond moves me greatly. I beg Mother Empress not to speak of such things any further, lest we damage this precious sentiment. My eyesight was sharp, and the moment the crown prince said, ever since childhood, your son has longed more than anything for brotherly affection, I clearly saw the Empress's body give a slight tremor, though it lasted no more than an instant. I did not miss it. Father Emperor's health has been declining, and your son still has urgent state affairs to attend to. I shall not linger here and trouble Mother Empress any longer, the crown prince said, then added, as for the women in the Eastern Palace, there is no need for Mother Empress to concern herself with them. With that, he took my hand and strode out of the hall without looking back. Get back here at once, the Empress roared furiously behind us. But the crown prince did not pause a single step. If she summons you again in the future, send someone to inform me at once. Do not go alone, lest you be bullied. The crown prince lifted me onto his palanquin without hesitation, dabbing the sweat from my forehead with a silk handkerchief. Seeing the look of concern on his face, I smiled up at him and said, I will. After sending me back to Yunlu courtyard, the crown prince left again to attend to his official duties. With the emperor's health failing, many of the state affairs had gradually been handed over to him, keeping him busier than ever, but those who sought to bring him down still clung relentlessly to the issue of his lack of heirs, especially Prince Rui. But the crown prince had thick skin. He insisted on talking to Prince Rui about brotherly love, even saying that Prince Rui had far too much free time on his hands, spending his days obsessing over the trivial matter of whose belly was swollen in his backyard. As an elder brother, he said he was deeply disappointed in his younger brother's lack of ambition, and promptly dispatched Prince Rui to the southern borders to inspect the river embankments, where summer floods were frequent and manpower was desperately needed. As for the Empress, she was not idle either. She wanted the crown prince to take another woman from her own clan as his new primary consort. Even using the welcome banquet for Prince and Princess Lepieng's return to the capital as an opportunity to pave the way for her own niece. Normally, a concubine would have no right to attend such a grand banquet, but after the crown princess's passing, there were no other female members of the Eastern Palace household left. As the only one who could even remotely be called a mistress, my name ended up on the guest list, to avoid disgracing the crown prince. I spent days learning proper court etiquette from Nanny Shi, who had been sent by Nanny Liu. Though my name was on the list, I was still just a concubine after all. Even as the representative of the Eastern Palace, I was not allowed to sit in the seat reserved for the primary consort, and had to take a place at the back tables. This suited me just fine. It meant I wouldn't be stared at like a circus freak, and could blend into the crowd, eating and drinking my fill while listening to the idle chatter of the unfamiliar noble ladies sitting beside me. Princess Lepieng is quite an extraordinary woman, you know. I heard she was originally a slave girl who had been sold off by her master, and had even given birth to a child before. She was spotted by Prince Lepieng on the road while being transported to her new owner, and he brought her back to his mansion on the spot. I heard that from my father too. Prince Lepieng has spent years fighting on the battlefield, with no interest in marriage whatsoever, but he fell head over heels in love with her at first sight, and immediately requested the emperor's permission to make her his princess, because she had been a slave and had a child already. All the ministers opposed the match. He even argued with them fiercely in the imperial court. So how did she end up becoming a princess then? I heard that she gave birth to a pair of twins, a boy and a girl, Prince Leping immediately used his military achievements to petition the emperor for her title. How utterly enviable. Speaking of such things, isn't there also a concubine in the crown prince's palace who is extremely favored by his highness? I had been listening with great interest, never expecting the conversation to suddenly take a turn and point directly at me. She is far less fortunate than Princess Leping, though. Rumor has it she is the very same palace maid that Prince Rui begged from the Empress, the one who was given the sterilizing soup by Her Majesty herself. And today, the Empress has brought her own niece with her, apparently. The girl was raised outside the palace and only just brought back recently, specifically to be made the new crown princess. I picked up a pastry between my fingers, a thoughtful look crossing my face. Who would have thought my father was still up to his old tricks? Why hadn't his legal wife resorted to the selling off scheme this time around? Just as I was pondering this, I suddenly heard a eunuch's loud announcement ringing out through the hall. Her Majesty the Empress has arrived. We pay our respects to Your Majesty the Empress. We pay our respects to Her Highness Princess Leping. Everyone in the hall dropped to their knees in unison to greet them. Rise, the Empress said indifferently. As everyone stood up, many of the guests caught sight of the young woman standing beside the Empress, and several even let out audible gasps of surprise. Curious about the commotion, I turned my gaze in that direction and was immediately captivated by the woman's face, for no other reason than the fact that she looked exactly like the late crown princess. This is my niece, whom I have only just brought back to the palace. Her name is Ningyuni. The Empress introduced her with a smile. Upon hearing that name, I couldn't help but narrow my eyes slightly. An inexplicable surge of rage and madness, a desire to destroy everything in sight, welled up from the depths of my heart. The noble ladies gathered around the Empress immediately began showering Ningyuni with compliments, flattering her until she looked positively smug. Auntie, I heard that the crown prince cousin's concubine is also present at this banquet, Ningyuni asked. Feigning an air of innocent curiosity, the Empress's smile faded a little. Your cousin has always been fond of his little whims. Insisting on letting a mere concubine represent the Eastern Palace at this event, it is only because there are no proper mistresses left in the Eastern Palace now that such a motley crew has been allowed to fill in the gaps. The Empress's dislike for me was barely concealed, but Ningyuni seemed determined to use me as her stepping stone. Completely ignoring who the true host of the banquet was. The Ning family has always been strict about rules and etiquette. I am sure that Her Highness Princess Leping, being of such noble birth, must also frown upon such impropriety. Even if cousin has allowed her to represent the Eastern Palace, how could she be so rude as to not come forward to pay her respects to Your Highness? If word of such gross discourtesy were to get out, would it not bring shame upon cousin? She is nothing but a concubine. After all, she ought not to make a fool of herself in front of Your Highness. The Empress and Ningyuni sang in perfect harmony, their disdain and contempt laid bare for all to see. I myself was once a concubine. Princess Leping suddenly spoke up, her voice gentle yet imbued with quiet strength. Since the crown prince has seen fit to let this concubine represent the Eastern Palace, she is fully entitled to receive the appropriate courtesies. I have no objection whatsoever. Her words were a clear counter to the Empress's implied insult. And the Empress's face immediately darkened with embarrassment. Concubine Yun, step forward at once, lest people say that the Eastern Palace has no sense of propriety left. The Empress snapped sharply. In that instant, I became the center of everyone's attention, with so many eyes fixed upon me. My heart began to beat a little faster. The noble ladies who had been chatting casually beside me just moments ago now stared at me with their mouths wide open in shock. Their faces filled with panic as they avoided meeting my gaze. I rose to my feet and walked slowly forward into the middle of the hall, curtsying respectfully to Princess Leping. Your humble servant Yun pays her respects to Your Highness Princess Leping. Because of my lowly status, I have been waiting here for Your Highness's arrival. It was never my intention to be remiss in paying my respects. I beg Your Highness's forgiveness. My voice was steady and measured, my words clear and coherent. My demeanor graceful and composed, leaving no room for anyone to find fault with me. Concubine Yun, raise your head, Princess Leping said, her tone warm and gentle, her voice sounding strangely familiar to my ears. I slowly lifted my head, another collective gasp rippled through the crowd, and those standing closest to me even blurted out in astonishment, "How can you, Mother? This elder sister looks just like you. Could she possibly be the elder sister you and Father have been searching for all these years?" A little girl of about 7 or 8 years old stood beside Princess Leping, her hair styled in 2 round buns, her big, bright black eyes sparkling with curiosity. Princess Leping reached out and gently ruffled the little girl's hair, her eyes fixed on mine suddenly brimming with tears. Her voice trembled slightly with emotion as she said softly, "Mother thinks she looks very much like her too." She dabbed at the corners of her eyes with a silk handkerchief, then turned to the stunned Empress and smiled warmly. "I hope I have not amused your Majesty, Concubine Yun. May I ask how old you are this year?" Princess Leping asked again. This sudden turn of events left me stunned for a long moment. I collected my wits and replied, "Your humble servant is 18 this year. Do you have a cloud-patterned birthmark carved on your back?" Princess Leping pressed, her voice trembling uncontrollably with emotion. The faces of the crowd varied wildly at this revelation, some were gaping in shock, others seething with anger. "I do indeed have a cloud-patterned birthmark on my back," I answered truthfully. Princess Leping walked toward me, tears threatening to spill from her eyes, on the verge of crying out "Sister," only to be abruptly cut off by the Empress. "Princess Leping, you are a member of the imperial family. Your every word and deed must not bring shame to the royal house. Furthermore, what are the odds that a palace maid who has grown up in the palace since childhood would just happen to match your description? I fear this is nothing but a deliberate ploy." As the Empress spoke, she glared at me repeatedly, all but accusing me of harboring malicious intentions. "You are absolutely right, Your Majesty. I was simply overcome with emotion," Princess Leping conceded with her words. But her body moved straight toward me, grabbing my hand tightly in hers. Nanny Lin promptly ordered a maid to go inform the prince, requesting his immediate presence, and assured everyone that once His Highness arrived, she would have a way to resolve this matter. Princess Leping patted my hand and pulled me to stand beside her. The Empress had originally intended to use this banquet to pave the way for her niece, but instead, all the gossip and attention in the hall had shifted entirely to me. Her face turned an ugly shade of red, yet she forced herself to maintain composure. "Then we shall discuss this further once Prince Leping arrives. Let us proceed with the feast, everyone. Do not let such a trivial matter spoil your mood, nor constrain the younger generation." My emotions had been on a wild rollercoaster ride. Standing beside Princess Leping for quite some time, I still couldn't fully recover from the shock. The mother of my memories had indeed been a gentle woman, with a soft voice, but she had always been cold and stern toward me. Because of my existence, she had been trapped in that small courtyard, condemned to a life as a secret concubine, hidden from the world. On the day she was sold off, she had smiled brighter than I had ever seen her. Even though the road ahead might have led to hell, it couldn't dim the sheer joy of regaining her freedom, a joy that shone brightly in her eyes. Lost in my thoughts, I suddenly felt a small hand tugging at mine. Looking down, I met the little girl's beaming smile. "Sister, come sit with Yanga, Yanga likes you." The little girl was about to pull me toward her seat when Ning Yuni, who had been standing by the Empress's side, suddenly darted over and said in a sarcastic tone, "Little princess, don't be so hasty. This matter is far from settled. You must not let yourself be deceived by someone with such ulterior motives." With that, she shoved me hard. I stumbled backward a few steps, only to find myself right at the edge of a low flight of steps. I let out a scream as I lost my balance and fell backward. Sister, though the steps were shallow and long, I didn't tumble all the way down. Instead, my elbow hit the ground first, followed by my body slamming down hard onto the floor. "Concubine Yun, must you resort to such underhanded tactics in front of everyone?" Ning Yuni struck first, pointing at me and shouting loudly, drawing countless eyes to the scene. The searing pain that shot through me in that instant left me unable to utter a single word. I only felt a warm gush spreading rapidly between my legs, soaking my skirt in an instant. Someone let out a loud cry. "It's blood. Concubine Yun is bleeding heavily." What is going on here? A hearty, rough voice boomed through the entire banquet hall. The crown prince made his way through the crowd, which had parted to clear a path for him, when he saw me lying on the ground. Writhing in pain and unable to speak, his face paled dramatically, he strode forward quickly. Una, his eyes fell on the bloodstains soaking my dress, and his normally gentle gaze blazed with sudden madness. Who did this? Send for the imperial physician at once. Your Highness, please do not move her for now. An elderly nanny stepped forward and said, "This looks like vaginal bleeding. We must wait for the imperial physician to administer acupuncture. Then she will need to be carefully tended to prevent a miscarriage, vaginal bleeding." But she was given the sterilizing soup years ago, Ning Yuni retorted loudly, attracting the crown prince's gaze. Yet she still refused to back down. "Cousin Crown Prince, this is clearly a frame-up. That is enough." The crown prince roared in anger. "I will get to the bottom of this matter once and for all later." He gathered me tightly in his arms, his voice soft with reassurance. "Do not be afraid. I am here." The imperial physician and his female assistants had been waiting in the side hall all along. At that moment, they rushed over carrying their medicine boxes. Seeing my condition, they immediately began administering acupuncture. "Quickly move her ladyship to the adjacent room, and have someone brew a bowl of miscarriage-preventing tonic for her to drink at once." With those words, the imperial physician announced to the entire room, "Concubine Yun of the Eastern Palace is with child." After that, I knew nothing more. Once the imperial physician had finished with the acupuncture, I drifted off into a deep sleep. When I finally woke up, I was back in Yunliu courtyard, and an entire day had passed. A faint, dull ache still lingered in my lower abdomen, and I didn't dare to move too much. I pressed my lips together, about to call out for a servant, when I heard the crown prince's voice. "Una, you're awake." He strode over to my side, carefully lifting me up and tucking several soft pillows behind my back to prop me up. "How do you feel?" Am I really pregnant?" I still remembered the large patches of blood that had soaked my dress before I fainted. I reached out hesitantly, placing my hand on my abdomen, unable to believe it. Could it be a misdiagnosis, or perhaps a ploy to bring down the Ning family, deliberately fabricated? The crown prince smiled, covering the back of my hand with his palm, and leaned down to meet my gaze. "It is no misdiagnosis. We truly are going to have a child. This will be our first family member in this world." He paused for a moment, then continued softly, "Those who gave us life, yet abandoned us in that small courtyard, have long since severed all ties of kinship with us. Even if they should regret it later and seek to make amends, we will never accept it. But this child is different. It is a new life, long awaited by two broken souls who found solace in each other amidst the depths of hell." Aang, I looked at the man before me, smiling as I called out the name I hadn't spoken in so many years. In our youth, he had once told me that he had no name, that he was nothing but a shadow of someone else. But I had told him, "Then Aang shall be your name. You may be a shadow now, but it is only temporary. One day, you will step into the light and become someone whom all others look up to." His palm tightened slowly, enveloping my hand completely. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down as he finally whispered two words. "It is me. I am sorry." Once, the Eastern Palace was swarming with the Empress's spies, and I dared not reveal my true identity to you, he explained. All those years ago, in her desperate bid for the Empress' favor, the Empress did not hesitate to frame others at the cost of her own health, though she gave birth to twin sons. Her body was so severely damaged that she could never conceive again, but twin sons could not inherit the throne, and she refused to accept this fate, so she hid one of the boys away, and in the end, she reaped what she had sown. Both boys were born with the cold poison lingering in their veins, condemning them to a life of infertility. After finally securing the right to compete for the throne, how could the Ning family possibly give up? So they devised an elaborate scheme. They placed the Crown Prince Shenjunyaro in the spotlight, pretending to cure him of his illness, while I was hidden away in the shadows, nameless and faceless, serving merely as my brother's medicinal vessel. The Ning family craved to continue their glory and power. To do that, they needed to produce heirs who carried the Ning bloodline. Merely treating the Crown Prince's illness was not enough. So they planned to marry their own daughter to him, hoping she would bear him children. As he spoke, he kept a close eye on my expression, afraid that I would be overwhelmed by the shock of it all, but I picked up where he had left off, right when he paused. The Ning family lusted after wealth and power, yet they feared that if their daughter should fail, or if something should happen to her during childbirth, all their efforts would benefit someone else instead, so they sent their niece instead. It is even possible that my very birth was part of the Ning family's elaborate scheme. Yuna, Aang stared at me anxiously. Do not worry, it is all in the past now, I comforted him. As you said, we will grow strong in the end. If they could not control us for a lifetime, then they must be prepared to face our revenge. Aang, they cannot remain perched high above us forever, enjoying all the wealth and privilege. Before this child is born, they must all die. I know, rest assured, before our child is born, all obstacles will be cleared away. By the way, who is that woman who bears my name and looks exactly like the late crown princess? Wasn't Ning Yunshi supposed to have died of illness? At the mention of Ning Yunshi, the man let out a cold laugh, his eyes filled with undisguised disdain. The members of the Ning family truly are all cowards who cling to life at all costs. When he spoke of my brother, a flicker of sorrow crossed his eyes. He did resist them. You know, the Ning family never actually intended to cure him. Instead, they falsely announced that he had fully recovered, hoping to trick all those who had been preparing backup plans for him, especially the childbearing vessel they had ready, to let their guard down before he died. He even used the torture chamber to transfer his cold poison to Ning Yunshi. If she did not die from it, then at the very least, she would never be able to bear children of the Ning bloodline again, he said, recalling the past with a sigh. In their minds at the time, the prepared childbearing vessel was already dead. To preserve the Ning bloodline, they had no choice but to save Ning Yunshi, since the cold poison had not yet fully taken root in her body. They staged her death and sent her out of the palace, sparing no effort to cure her. Now, she has returned under the guise of the Empress's niece, ready to be made the Crown Prince's new primary consort. From the moment I took on the identity of Shinjunyao, the Ning family had already laid out their plans. They were as arrogant as ever, believing that a child who had been strictly controlled and hidden away all his life had no right to resist. They thought my sole purpose in life was to father heirs for them, to be smoothly pushed onto the dragon throne, and to continue the Ning family's glory. It was precisely because of this that they used the excuse of the Crown Princess's one-year mourning period to refuse to allow the Crown Prince to take any new concubines into the Eastern Palace, unwittingly giving me a full year to plot and prepare. As soon as the mourning period ended, Prince Rui sent me straight to the Eastern Palace under the pretense of helping with the heir issue. Is this not a stroke of fate? Your Highness, Prince and Princess Leping have arrived, Eunuch Fu announced from the doorway, bringing our conversation to a temporary halt. Did you arrange for Princess Leping to be here? I thought back to her actions at the banquet. She was indeed my mother, but at this moment, she hesitated, as if carefully choosing her words before speaking. You could call it a mutually beneficial arrangement, he replied. I raised my hand, brushing the back of my fingers against his cheek, and chuckled softly. What is there to be so coy about? Those 4 words, mutually beneficial arrangement, sound far more comfortable than he has been searching for me tirelessly for all these years. Family ties are nurtured over time, after all. Besides, she had never chosen to be a secret concubine back then. Who could truly feel deep affection for a child born of force? If this child had been just another pawn in the Ning family's schemes, then I would have felt no love for it either. I would have even resorted to any means necessary to take revenge on those people before it was even born. But Aang hated hearing me talk about such destructive plans that would hurt both sides. He quickly changed the subject. It won't be long now, they will soon pay for all their crimes. I had always believed every word Aang said. To hold on to the position of Crown Prince, mere pretense and imitating his brother's ways of doing things were far from enough. It stemmed more from his own inherent strength. Send for Prince and Princess Leping at once. Do not keep them waiting, I said, straightening the slightly disheveled lapels of Aang's robe, then called for Eunuch Fu to usher them in. Uncle Huang, Aunt Huang, The crown prince broke into his usual warm and gentle smile. Greeting them politely, I was about to offer my greetings as well when Prince Leping cut me off with a booming voice that made my ears ring. Truly the bold and unconstrained man I remembered. You're carrying a child, no need for all these formalities. Regarding Yuna's identity, this prince has already reported to His Majesty the Emperor. By fate's will, Yuna has become your concubine and is now carrying your first child. There is no reason she should not be elevated to the position of your second crown princess. I shall first thank Uncle Huang for going to such lengths for Yuna. It's nothing at all. From now on, this prince can be considered your honorary father-in-law. Come, let's go have a few drinks over there, and leave these mother and daughter to talk in private. It was clear that Prince Leping intended to leave his wife with some private time to speak with me. Then I shall entrust Yuna to your highness's care. Once the two of us were left alone in the room, neither of us spoke a word. The awkward silence stretched on for a long while, until finally, Princess Leping was the first to break it. These past years, they must have been very hard for you. I'm sorry, The past is in the past. You have no need to apologize. You did nothing wrong, and giving birth to me was never your choice. I cut her off. The true culprit is someone else entirely. I lowered my eyes, my gaze falling on my abdomen, and offered a faint smile. It's enough that we each live our own lives in peace. They say that children who learn to read others' moods from an early age are the first to grow up, for all people instinctively seek advantage and avoid harm. So I had known very early on that my mother did not love me. My father, though occasionally affectionate, was never by my side for long. Every time I tried to show him closeness, it only earned me even colder glares and indifference from my mother. She never even needed to say a word. A single stern look from her was enough to keep me on edge for an entire day. Who doesn't yearn for parental love and a carefree childhood? But I had long since stopped needing any of that. So when faced with this biological mother I hadn't seen in years, even though there was a hint of guilt in her eyes, all I could offer her was the wish that we might each live our own lives in peace. Do not worry. The Ning family will not be able to run amok for much longer. Rest well, she said, after staring at me for a long time, finally managing to squeeze out this dry, awkward sentence. After she left, I sat quietly for a long while, feeling utterly exhausted. The imperial edict conferring upon me the title of crown princess arrived soon after. Since I was confined to bed to rest and nurture the pregnancy, the crown prince accepted the edict on my behalf. As for the wedding preparations, they were postponed until after the child was born next year, but all the servants in the Eastern Palace promptly began addressing me by my new title. Gifts poured into Yunliu courtyard in a steady stream, but I only asked Inshua to pick out some pieces of fabric. Confined to bed with nothing to do, I planned to make some small clothes for the baby, crown princess. The empress has sent a nanny to pay her respects. She has also brought the young lady from the Ning family and Lady Ning with her, saying they have come to offer their sincere apologies in person. Inshua reported as she entered the room. I will not see them, I said coldly. As for the nanny sent by the empress, she may stand outside the door and take a distant look if she wishes. I have no desire to see these unpleasant people right now. It would only spoil my appetite. Inshua bowed and left to carry out my orders. But it wasn't long before a commotion broke out outside. Ning Yuni was trying to force her way in, but the crown prince had long since posted extra guards around the courtyard. There was no way she could break through. Concubine Yun, you little vixen, get out here at once. Ning Yuni was pinned to the ground by the guards, looking utterly disheveled, yet she still struggled and shouted curses. You bastard child. How dare you put on airs like you're the real crown princess? You're nothing but a breeding vessel for the crown prince. I stood up and walked to the doorway. My abdomen already slightly protruding, I fixed her with a cold stare and spat out 2 words. Slap her. Inshua stepped forward, striking her hard across the left cheek, cutting off her tirade mid-sentence. She then delivered another sharp slap to the right cheek, leaving Ning Yuni's curses reduced to broken, gasping splutters. Concubine Yun, the young lady from the Ning family has come to apologize. This is going too far. You're being utterly unreasonable. The old nanny sent by the empress stepped forward to intervene, her voice shrill with indignation. She has startled me. Slap her as well, I said, my gaze drifting to the noble lady in my memories, the one who had pushed me into hell, Lady Ning. She had aged quite a bit. Though she still wore luxurious robes and carried herself with haughty pride, she couldn't hide the exhaustion etched on her face. It seemed she had finally realized that the illegitimate daughter she had once cast aside had climbed her way up, and now she was afraid. She met my gaze, still trying to maintain the haughty demeanor of a noble lady, but I didn't even wait for her to speak, turning instead to the old woman standing nearby. This woman has startled me too. Slap her. I am a titled lady of the imperial court. Then drag her outside and slap her, I replied icily. The sound of slaps echoing through Yunlu courtyard was truly a delight to hear. Eunuch Fu arrived at the sound of the commotion, just in time to see the three of them with swollen, red faces. He snapped his jaw shut, which had dropped open in shock, and hurried forward to greet me. Crown Princess, are you all right? Were you disturbed? His Highness has given explicit orders that no one is to disturb your rest. I nodded repeatedly. Rest assured, Eunuch Fu. I know you are more than capable of handling this. Ning Yunyi's face was swollen to twice its normal size, yet she still fixed my abdomen with a gaze filled with venomous hatred. Young Lady Ning, what are you shouting about here? How dare you look at the Crown Princess with such eyes? Watch your tongue, or I'll have them gouged out. Eunuch Fu snapped at her sharply. Do you really think the Crown Prince cares about you? He is cold-hearted and ruthless even toward his own aunt. He's only keeping you around as a breeding vessel. Ha ha ha, I'll just wait and see the day you give birth to that child. Drag her away at once. She's completely mad. Ning Yunyi's voice faded into the distance, her venomous rage dissipating slowly with the wind. Is that so? I murmured softly to myself. Unfortunately for all of you, none of the Ning family will live to see that day. Crown Princess, do not listen to the ravings of a madwoman. His Highness's feelings for you are. Tell His Highness to show some leniency toward the young lady from the Ning family. I cut Eunuch Fu off, giving him a meaningful look. After all, she is technically his cousin. Do you understand? I understand perfectly, Your Highness. After I was officially conferred the title of Crown Princess by Imperial Edict, I became the talk of the entire capital overnight. Rumors had long circulated that the Crown Prince had been afflicted with fertility issues since his youth. Shortly after his marriage, his first wife had passed away, and the Eastern Palace had remained devoid of any other women. When Prince Rui had sent me to humiliate him earlier, who hadn't laughed behind the Crown Prince's back, no one could have imagined that I would become pregnant so quickly, naturally. There were also malicious rumors spread that I had already been carrying Prince Rui's child before being sent to the Crown Prince, using the baby as a bargaining chip to secure my position. But those who spread these rumors were soon paid a visit by Prince Lepiang, who led his troops to their homes and had them thoroughly ransacked. But that was not the end of it. After the Crown Prince began overseeing state affairs and attending court sessions in the Emperor's stead, he directly targeted the officials who had spread the rumors. Minister Wu, I hear that the new concubine you recently took into your household was the wife of your late younger brother. Minister Wu was a Ministry of Revenue official allied with the Ning family, and he turned pale with shock at once. This is absolutely untrue, Your Highness. Minister Liu, I hear that you have a particular fondness for taking in pregnant women into your household. You enjoy raising other men's children. Is that correct? Minister Liu trembled like a leaf, dropping to his knees at once. I would never stoop to such immoral acts, Your Highness. The warm, gentle smile faded completely from the Crown Prince's face, replaced by a cold, steely glare. So you do know that such acts are immoral. Then do you truly believe that I, your Crown Prince, would stoop to such shameless and unethical behavior? Prince Rui has only just returned from his inspection tour of the southern borders, and yet you all have trampled so ruthlessly on the honor of both me and my brother. You are a disgrace to your positions as ministers of the imperial court. The officials in the hall fell to their knees in a chorus, crying out in unison, "Please calm your anger, Your Highness." As for Prince Rui, who knelt at the very front, he wore an expression of bitter helplessness. As if he had swallowed a mouthful of gall. I stroked my already prominent abdomen, 4 months along now, and couldn't help but laugh out loud. I was hidden in the side chamber behind the dragon throne. Inconspicuous, and no one in the hall knew I was present at the morning court session that day. I had still been half asleep when the Crown Prince had woken me, saying he wanted to avenge the wrongs done to me. He had insisted that it wouldn't be a true revenge if I wasn't there to witness it personally. Crown Princess, please have some tea first. Inshua looked thoroughly alarmed as she watched me double over with laughter, hurrying to hand me a cup of tea. The Crown Prince continued to lash out at the officials indirectly, ultimately laying the blame on Prince Rui for his earlier dissolute behavior with women, which had made a laughingstock of him in front of the court. Now that I have an heir on the way, Prince Rui can rest assured and throw himself wholeheartedly back into his official duties, sharing the burden of state affairs for Father Emperor. You did a fine job with the inspection tour of the southern borders. How would you like to go north to the frontier to reward the soldiers on Father Emperor's behalf, Shenjuanyao? This is nothing but personal revenge. True to his foolish nature, Prince Rui jumped to his feet on the spot, shouting furiously, I only just returned, I've lost several jinn from all the hard work. And now you want to send me away again? It would indeed be too much to ask of you to go alone, the Crown Prince said, not giving him a chance to continue speaking. He slammed his palm down on the armrest of his throne, making the final decision. Why not take Princess Rui with you to the northern frontier? She can take care of your daily needs and diet along the way. With that, he banished Prince Rui to the frontier without another word. Next, it was the turn of the Ning family. After all the groundwork he had laid earlier, it was time to make my scoundrel of a father squirm with fear. Father Emperor lies ill in bed. Mother Empress worries deeply for him day and night, even offering to personally attend to his medicinal needs. It moves me deeply to see her devotion. And yet, just a few days ago, the Ning family spread malicious rumors and humiliated the Crown Princess, who is enduring the hardships of pregnancy. I am ashamed to face the Crown Princess, and even more ashamed to betray the trust that Prince Leping has placed in me. Therefore, Minister Ning, you have experience attending to the Emperor's medicinal needs in the past. Your experience is invaluable. You shall remain in the palace from now on to test the Emperor's medicines in person, to atone for your crimes. I know I was wrong, Your Highness, but I am already an old man now, of the same age as His Majesty the Emperor. My body simply cannot withstand such hardships. The Crown Prince cut him off sharply. Escort Minister Ning down to the Imperial Pharmacy at once. Inform the Ning residents that Minister Ning will remain in the palace from this day forth to test the Emperor's medicines. He will not be returning home, Crown Prince. This is blatant personal revenge. Minister Ning suddenly jumped to his feet, but the quick-witted eunuchs nearby immediately pinned him down, dragging him out of the court hall without another word. For a moment, the entire hall fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. I placed a hand on my abdomen, a bright, triumphant smile spreading across my face. Suddenly, I felt a faint kick against the palm of my hand, a small bump protruding from my stomach. Was the baby also rejoicing for its mother? After the Crown Prince announced the end of the court session, he lifted the curtain and stepped into the side chamber to help me to my feet. Are you tired? He reached out to gently stroke my prominent abdomen, a hint of concern flickering in his eyes. I'm not tired at all. Your Highness has somewhere you want to take me, don't you? He slipped an arm around my waist, guiding me slowly toward the door. Yes, I've been wanting to do this for a long time, but the imperial physicians insisted that you had to rest quietly for 3 months to ensure the pregnancy was stable, so I had no choice but to put it off. Otherwise, do you think I would have allowed those vermin to continue running amok for so long? The Crown Prince helped me onto his palanquin. I smiled and said, then let's make it quick. I have no desire to make multiple trips like this, especially not with twins in my belly. It would exhaust me. After boarding the palanquin himself, the Crown Prince gave the order, to the Cold Palace. The Cold Palace was an unexpectedly lively place that day. You worthless dogs, who gave you the right to lay hands on me? My daughter is the Crown Princess now. Go and send her a message at once. She'll come and save me. As the door of that small courtyard, burned to the ground years ago and then rebuilt, was pushed open from the outside once again, time seemed to overlap. For a moment, I felt as if I were seeing my younger self, being dragged into this very place all those years ago. Yinna, it's father. Don't you remember how much father doted on you when you were little? The moment my scoundrel of a father laid eyes on me, his eyes lit up like torches. He struggled frantically to break free from the guards restraining him and rushed toward me, but it was no use at all. The empress beside him was screaming at the top of her lungs, "You ungrateful wretch, if I had known you would grow up to be like this, I should have strangled you the moment you were born, ungrateful wretch." The crown prince sneered, the cold amusement fading from his face. He raised a hand and waved it sharply. The guards pinning them down immediately dragged them over to the edge of their respective medicinal baths, where the steaming herbal concoctions still billowed with heat, filling the air with a pungent, bitter scent of herbs. "Ah, I am your own flesh and blood, father. Even if you won't save me, won't you at least accumulate some virtue for the child in your belly?" my father shrieked, his voice cracking with terror. "Minister Ning, you have not yet had the honor of entering this glorious service," I said, my voice calm and icy. "Did not His Highness say, you and the Empress are doing this out of loyalty to His Majesty the Emperor, volunteering to test these medicines for him? Why then are you so afraid? It is not as if anyone is going to kill you and the Empress on the spot. Besides, the imperial physicians are the finest in the land. Should anything untoward happen, they will rush to your aid at once. You are so unfilial. Are you not afraid of being struck down by lightning from the heavens for your crimes?" The Empress howled, her voice shrill with rage. The crown prince stepped forward, shielding me behind his body. As the old saying goes, parents are their children's first teachers, for better or worse. To be submerged in these medicinal baths, every inch of your skin, every bone in your body will feel as if it is being shattered, reconstructed, torn apart, and then reborn all over again, he said. His voice cold and unforgiving. "She and I endured this agony for 10 long years. The Empress and Minister Ning are getting on in years. They will surely not be able to bear it. First, dislocate their jaws, so that their screams of pain do not escape these walls and cause people to think this place is haunted by ghosts." After I finished speaking, I took the crown prince's hand and turned to leave. The curses behind us quickly turned into blood-curdling screams of agony, which finally dissolved into indistinct, muffled whimpers. Their future would be rotting away right here, in this place. But the new life of Aang and me was only just beginning, when the door of the small courtyard in the cold palace slammed shut behind us once more. It sealed all their roars and suffering away in another world entirely. Our hands were clasped tightly together, neither of us saying a single word. We just walked slowly forward, side by side, like two broken, tattered souls. Beneath the blazing sun, we mended each other's shattered pieces, gradually becoming one, leaning on each other for all eternity. The following year, I gave birth to twin boys. The labor was long and agonizing, fraught with countless difficulties. Though they were twins, the two brothers were born a full day apart. The emperor's health deteriorated sharply, and he abdicated the throne in favor of the crown prince. The Ministry of Rites no longer needed to prepare for the crown prince's wedding. Instead, they immediately switched gears to plan the grand imperial wedding of the new emperor and empress. In the years that followed, Prince Rui was basically dispatched on one mission after another, sent gallivanting all over the realm, never once allowed to rest properly in the capital. He transformed from a handsome, dashing young prince into a weather-beaten, rugged man, worn down by constant travel and toil. The emperor specially held a feast in his honor. His face still wreathed in that warm, spring-like smile, but his words were as sharp and venomous as poisoned swords. "If it were not for you, fifth brother, the empress and I would never be where we are today. We truly owe you a debt of gratitude." The emperor raised his wine cup to Prince Rui. "You returned from the northern borders only 2 years ago, and then immediately had to rush off to handle the floods in the south. Now that you have finally come back, you have even missed my imperial wedding. You may rest here in the capital for a while, until the beginning of spring next year. The empress has just been diagnosed with another pregnancy 3 months along now. I will not be able to leave the capital at the start of spring next year, so you will go west in my stead, to inspect the border regions there." Prince Rui's entire body went rigid with shock, all his bravado vanished in an instant, and he burst into tears on the spot. Sobbing uncontrollably, "Your Majesty, brother, I know I was wrong, I was truly wrong, please spare me, I beg you." I could barely hold back my laughter. No matter how loudly Prince Rui wept and begged for forgiveness, he still could not escape his fate. Come spring next year, he would be sent off to inspect the western borders once again, but before he left, the Emperor specially ordered someone to deliver the news to him that I had given birth to another pair of twins. This time a boy and a girl. According to the servants who reported back, Prince Rui had been weeping so hard that his face was covered in tears and snot, but when he heard this news, his face went completely blank, drained of all color and emotion. Without another word, he climbed silently into his carriage, with Princess Rui following meekly behind him, to continue his endless journey of exile. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to support me.